Okay. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the final Corporate Services and Economic Growth Review and Scrutiny Committee of this Council. So welcome all. Just to bear in mind that it is now the pre-election period, so bear that in mind for all the comments that you no doubt want to make on the reports. Before we start, I'd just like to thank the staff team for all their work over the last 4 years, and you, the committee, for all your penetrating questions. I think everyone here is standing for re-election, so on behalf of the Chair, good luck, and I hope to see you all back very soon. Right, so let's move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
I've had apologies from Councillor Wearmouth.
Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting, it's been circulated. All happy? Anything agreed? I'll sign them. What's the date? 34. And then disclosure of members' interests. Anything to disclose? No? Right, we'll go into our first presentation. I'm very pleased to welcome the Advance team back to what is now a regular slot to come and tell us what Advance is doing. So I'll hand over to Simon, who's going to introduce and talk through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. You'll note we have a reduced team compared with last year. We thought we'd keep it concise and to the point this time round. If it's okay with the committee, I would like to take the opportunity to talk through some of our achievements over recent years, but then also I'd like to spend a couple of moments just explaining some of the changes we've made within the business this year. I'm pleased to say that I've been here a year with the business for 1 year now, and there has been quite a few maybe subtle changes, but we'd like to talk about some of those. We'll talk about some of our achievements this year in particular, but then I do want to also spend a few minutes on our business plan. So one of the main changes during the course of this year has been the establishment of a 5-year plan. And then I'll be pleased to take some questions, having also been through some of the financials this year as well, if that's okay, Chair. So it says presented by Stephen Harrison at the start. I'm actually going to share that duty with Alex Wally, who's our Head of Communications and Marketing, and William, who's our Exec Director. If I could pass across to Alex, first of all, who's going to talk about some of the things that the business has done in recent years, and then we'll lead on to some of the more recent achievements, if that's okay, Alex.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so I'm going to run through some of Advance Northumberland's achievements and impact to date. Okay, so we manage 1,160 homes. We have a 1.7 million square foot of commercial space that we also manage. We've secured 1,220 jobs and £180 million of investment. We've delivered 776 new homes across Northumberland, and 153 of those are affordable homes. We have £250 million in projects currently in design or the development stage, and we have £100 million in ongoing construction projects. So they are some of the achievements and impacts that we've achieved to date as Advance Northumberland. As Stephen has said, he joined us last year in March, so I'll pass you back across to Stephen. He's going to talk about his impact, some of the projects that we're working on, and what we've been doing for the last 12 months.
So hopefully, Chair, the committee would agree that there's some large numbers there, which I think signifies the fact that we're a significant player in Northumberland. One of the things, however, that I did take the opportunity to have a look at with the team when I arrived was just really redefining what we were about. So I think people know us for various things, and certainly when I told people I was joining the business, I had slight difficulty in the first place explaining what Advance was about. So we've actually tried to redefine more clearly. So I'm not going to go into every single word, but we've actually got what I'd like to think is a clearer definition. Yes, we are a property business. We are a development business, but I think we're far more than that. And what we've tried to do sort of quite clearly in the last 6 months particularly is align ourselves far more closely with Northumberland County Council's corporate plan. So the bullets on the right of the slide there, I'm hoping you all know far better than I do. So what we've tried to do is, whilst keeping ourselves as an arm's length business, which I do feel is important in enabling us to do more than others may be able to do, we are very close aligned in terms of objectives. So we're both striving for the same end goal, perhaps getting there in slightly different ways. And I think that was an important change for us to make as a business. We've gone on from that to establish a number of clear aims. First of all, we want to establish ourselves as the best arm's length council-owned business. We want to make sure we're adding genuine value, both in terms of physical attributes on the ground, but also in terms of social value. It might seem like a subtle shift, but it's not just about putting buildings up, it's about doing the right thing in the communities, and that's going to drive us in a slightly different way on certain projects. It means that we're not necessarily chasing commercial gain on everything, but we are doing things for the right reasons, and I think that brings a slight twist to the way that we work. We want to be a force for good in Northumberland. Hopefully that would go without saying, but I think it sometimes needs to be written down. I want us to be a lead in each of the sectors in which we work. So we're probably more clearly defined in terms of the areas that we work now, whether it be project management, house building, or as a landlord. I really want us to be seen as the best in class in those, initially regionally, but then there's no reason why we shouldn't chase higher goals, and that's what we're working towards. And I think lastly, the point that I made before about stakeholders, aligning ourselves with stakeholders. And I use this word delivery quite a bit. So as a team now, we see ourselves as a delivery company. So if you ask me to pick one word out, it's about delivering stuff. And I know that I've been speaking with many in the room about the need to get projects over the line and deliver for the communities in which we work. So a real change there. In terms of how we're going to deliver those aims, we've got some key strategy points. We are going to make sure we're a commercial company. I make no apology for the fact that we drive ourselves as a commercial company. That should enable us to get more done, should enable us to get more done more efficiently. I will not shy away from the fact that on occasions we will look to make profit. If we don't make profit, we'll not be sustainable and will be a drag on council resources. So I do want to make sure we're seen as a profitable business, and I'll come back to that right at the end. That means we will be financially sustainable. The decision that was made in principle last week to realign our financial plan is a real step in the right direction in that respect, and that will allow us to become financially sustainable in the long term. In the short and medium term, becoming more profitable as a business will help us do that as well. It's not lost on me the fact that, as any business should be, we look to minimise risk. I think given that we're owned by public bodies such as yourselves, we need to elevate that in our consciousness, and there's been a lot of great work done by William and the team in terms of managing the risk within the business. What I would say is, having experience across a number of different companies over probably more years than I care to remember, having come into Advanced Northumberland, the risk management and the way that risk is managed within the business, I'm really impressed with. So hopefully the committee can take some reassurance from that. And then it is about delivery focus, and we are focusing as we move forward in some certain key areas: delivery of homes, continued commercial development, and certainly improving what we do on the regeneration project front. In terms of what we're delivering within each of the areas in the last 12 months, if I look at our homes area first, the house building part of our business is still embedding itself. We're still relatively young as a house builder. We have no pretensions to be a Taylor Wimpey or a Persimmon, but we do want to be the best in Northumberland at what we do. To that end, we've delivered 37 affordable homes, both shared ownership and affordable rent. We'd like to do far more there. 30 dementia-ready bungalows, and I know we've been speaking with many colleagues across the council to do more work in that area as well. 100 homes for sale across Northumberland. We've eventually managed to complete sales at our annex scheme. And we've got successful sales at Blythe and Wooler. And this is one part of the business that is important for us in terms of delivering housing, but also delivering profit into the business. I would like to say we've had a really successful weekend. On the last weekend of the month, we had a number of reservations at Ellington and our Winnie Hills sites, which augurs well for the year coming as well. So there has been a bit of a rush last few weeks to take advantage of the stamp duty situation as it exists at the moment. We will have delivered, since its inception, 767 homes with 153 affordables.
Sorry, Steve, just to interrupt, your slide says 776, but then it's...
Sorry, I do apologise. I will clarify, if I can come back to that, Chair. not sure which one's the right one, but I apologise for that, Terry. I'll come back on that. So the Ascent Homes is a large part of what we're doing. Investments and commercial, again, another key area for us. I'm pleased to say that as a business, we have a 92% occupancy rate. We support currently 4,000 jobs across the portfolio that we have as a landlord. We've actually increased revenue by £200,000 this year. Importantly, we're 100% statutory compliant, and that is a real area of focus for us. And at the moment, 97% of our commercial tenants would recommend Advanced Northumberland, which I think compares very well with many in the private sector. We continue to support shareholder delivery. If I could come back, Chair, to the slide on sustainability, we'll come back to that. We're working on a number of projects across the county, some of which are shown on the photograph that you have in front. If I look first at Bedlington Town Centre, the work on the 4 retail units and apartments above is nearly complete. There have been some slight delays. One of the contractors let us down there, but we're back on there now, getting that work completed. Subject to finalisation of finance, we have projects with B&M and Starbucks on the land next to Aldi that we're hoping to bring to fruition in the coming weeks, and we're working closely to complete the town centre development on plot 3, which will be the last of the remaining plots there as well. The initial work due to complete in April 25, that has sustained a number of jobs over the course of the year as well. If I move on to NEP 1, which is our dock next to the JDR factory in Blythe, works, I'm pleased to say, are nearly complete there as well. This has been a bit of a thorn in the side of the business for a number of years. We have eradicated a large chunk of the risk within the business. There was a potential for a claim from a contractor that we've now signed an agreement on, so that risk has been taken away, and that's something that's been hanging over the business for a while. So that's something that's been really pleasing for us this year. We're due to complete works in May 2025, at which point we'll hand across to use of that factory, use of the key to JDR. So that will be well in advance of the completion of the factory. So I guess a risk that's been hanging over the business now that hopefully we can see the back of. In terms of the projects that I was going to cover, the last one at the moment is Portland Park in Ashington. Again, a site that's probably dragged in terms of lack of completion over recent years. We are moving towards signing that agreement with Real Cinema. I'm actually going down to Burnley this week just to look at some of their sites down there, just to satisfy myself that everything's in order before we recommend that deal for signing off. We are working with Jan and her team to finalise the finances on that, and we hope to be commencing work later on in the year on the cinema project there. So that's a project that's been there for some time, and we're really keen to get that over the line. And last but not least, in terms of the business area performance this year, our homes and maintenance business, 96% occupancy. You remember we've got over 1,100 homes across the county, making us the largest private landlord in the county. 89 or 90% of our tenants are promoters and would recommend us. Of those people that we have as tenants, we have 100% satisfaction with property condition at present time. I would say that there are some areas of improvement. I do really want us to do more in terms of the way that we act as a landlord. And I've certainly been speaking with one of the committee today about where we can improve the quality of some of our stock in the Hurst. That will be an area of focus for us in the coming year. We would like to do more in terms of kick-starting the master plan there, but I do acknowledge that there are some areas where we have to up our game as a landlord at the moment. So we've further areas for improvement there. But you can see from the numbers along the bottom that we are doing work, we are investing in this part of the business. This is one of the areas that if the refinancing plan does go ahead finally, this is one of the areas we focus for further investment. It is really important for us to be providing good quality homes across Northumberland. So that hopefully gives you a bit of an insight into what we've done last year, Chair. The other main bit of work that we've been involved in this year is looking at our business plan development. Previously, we've had a year-by-year budget, so we've operated on a sort of an annual basis. What we have now is a longer-term plan, clear strategy with clearly stated objectives, goals and action plans. So right at the top, we've got the objectives that are set in conjunction with the council, and working right the way down, and we've got, there's a lot of granularity here. We have a number of individual objectives, and we are actually disseminating those amongst all 150 staff. So there's a clear plan from start, from top to bottom. If I can pass across to William, William's going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we actually started to work this plan up, really starting from board level and discussions with the senior officers at the County Council. And William's going to take us through some of the threads there.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chair. As Stephen says, this is our first 5-year business plan. It's something we're very proud of, particularly because it involved essentially everybody in the business. This was not mandated from above and rolled out. We got everybody together in their relevant teams to look through their individual division for a SWOT analysis to understand what we were really good at, where we could do better, what was on the horizon, that if for a better word, unleashed, what our aspirations could be in terms of opportunities, but similarly not to get too carried away and be alert to any threats that such expansion or ambition would have. So within all of the companies, the commercial, the investments, the homes, and the corporate services itself, we went through those at team level, fed that back. It was an iterative process so that we could refine them. There were several more on the list, but these were the ones that came back as the regular ones to look at. That were fairly common to the group. And so we just want to pick up on a couple of those. I've been with Advance in the company for 2 years now. I've been linked with the company for 3.5 as the secretary. And as the secretary, when I was here at the county, you get to see maybe about 10% of what goes on in the company. And you get to see the real strength of the skilled team and the dedicated team, which I think the result on last Wednesday is very well received in the company, that ambition that we have. So we'll unleash the skilled team, very much the focus, and therefore that based the lens on what we could go and do. One of the weaknesses that Wednesday will have addressed is the financial model, the way we were structured. If and we hope that will be delivered through in the new administration, that will show what the company can do across those companies, across the different delivery divisions. But what was very key about our business plan focus was we were not just individual divisions. It was how to come together as Advance. And so whilst the individual companies brought these through, it was then returned through the senior management team, the executive leadership team, and the board, and then ultimately to the shareholder committee for the bringing those knots together to form a really strong group offering. One of the things we can look ahead for is maybe trying to leverage our teams and our coverage through the opportunities for JVs to do even better with what we've got. So it's not just us on our own, which I think helps us spread the message across the county and wider through NECA, for example. But again, comes back to what Stephen says is our focus is the delivery. So if we can deliver through partnerships, it will be even greater. Linking with those threats, this is a new era for us, that ambition, but we'll not be running and getting ahead of ourselves. The reliance on the shareholders is a two-way thing. The freeing up through the financing will allow us to be more ambitious and deliver more, but similarly the control that we have and the link with our shareholder is never lost. We are a commercial entity, but that ownership and who we deliver for is not lost on us. I think I could, rather than deliver through every one of the SWOT analysis, I think it was more the attention to the detail and focus that we're provided through the business plan that I think gives us as a board the confidence that we've covered those areas, and we've now got something to measure against on a it will be annual, but for that 5-year look ahead plan. Okay, I think the next one is something that's very it was mentioned earlier, but we want to bring it to the end because this is to give it a bit of extra focus. This is something very new within the business. It's a new business area. We have been addressing sustainability as a business anyway. We've through our business operations, we've had a baseline of our emissions starting 2 years ago. In the second year of measurement, we reduced our gross emissions by 10, nearly 11%. That is ongoing. That's programs and initiatives throughout all of the companies to reduce. But what's particularly exciting for me this year is we're now creating a greater focus. We are, subject to shareholder approval, setting up a brand new company to be called Advanced Green Futures that will really just focus on sustainability. It will support the group's sustainability mission, but it's a brand new business in its own right that will link with all of the other aspects of delivery and the wider Northumberland delivery, being a habitat bank as the primary focus of the first section of this business. I don't know if you know, if you've been following biodiversity net gain, but essentially this is going to enable the county to unlock other developments, whether it's from Advance, the county itself, or the significant stakeholders in the region that will link with the economic growth and renaturing to go hand in hand together. The Potland Burn site is currently going through the process of becoming registered with DEFRA so that we can sell the units when the new company is formed. It's approximately 690 units potentially. We've got 300 of those 690 units already allocated through county schemes, advanced schemes, and significant regional development as well. So in its infancy, this enables us to be a real leader. So whilst we know the economic growth team joined Northumberland itself in October, this enables us to do that wider economic growth delivery going hand in hand with being a commercial business, supporting economic growth through the region and renaturing. So again, you'll see that our ambition is not just to be limited to Northumberland, but to be the leading habitat bank for the north of England because of us perhaps getting out of the gate earlier than others and having that support of the county. We work tremendously well with the county's ecology and planning team, and that's a really good partnership. Something we're very excited about.
So we,
Yes, Councillor Bishop.
Is it possible, you know, I mean, I know it will be new council, but have a little bit more information with your you know, ideas with the development Potland Burn, because obviously it's, as you say, through the county, but would like to know a little bit, have a little bit more meat on the bones as regard what you're actually going to do with that site and how far it expand. I know it might be early doors and I must apologise, but it's just something to look at in the future, near future, if it's possible.
Absolutely. If I may, Chair, I think perhaps once the company was actually formed, we could come and give a presentation just on the company itself to the council generally, you know, as a would-be client and our owner, or whichever of the committees you would prefer. But it's something we'd be very happy and really want to do to spread that out because it is novel.
Thank you. I think, Sean, if you can make a note to whoever's sitting in this chair in the due time, maybe invite the new company to come.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do appreciate it. Thank you, William. Thank you. Thanks, Ron.
yes, and I wouldn't underestimate the opportunities that part of our business is going to provide. So first of all, financially, there will be significant benefits to Advanced Northumberland and therefore to the county. In terms of environmental improvements, there's a real opportunity to win on that front as well, once we know exactly what it is that we're doing, but also in aiding future development across the county as well. So there are 3 clear wins there just by setting up that one company. So that's really exciting for us. The last slide, you'll be pleased to hear, Chair, just talks about the future financial projections for the business. However, this is only as credible as the business performance that we are capable of achieving now. So we had set this year a budget target of £2.1 million of profit before tax. That was reliant on, still not sure whether it's fully over the line yet, that was reliant on having a deal completed by today. I'm reliably informed this morning that that will be the case. So we expect to hit that £2.1 million profit target. And that's been a real clear focus for us as a business. I know if we are to have credibility within our business going forward, we need to deliver on the promises that we've set out. So we should, barring a last-minute catastrophe, we should be able to tick that box. And that gives me and the rest of the senior team that confidence that when we put numbers on a bit of paper, that we've actually got something we can deliver against going forward. So we have set out here a set of projections over the next 5 years. This is predicated on the The refinancing that was talked about last week by full council actually progressing. This is not showing world domination. This is showing a sensible growth across the business. But we'll see profits rise next year up to £5 million, and by the end of the 5-year period up to £11 million. And that is money that will be directed straight back into the county and straight back into Advanced Northumberland, allowing us to do even more. You see on the slide a number of figures there. So our revenue, which is around about the £70 million mark at the moment, will increase to over £120 million over that 5-year period, primarily through building of new houses and development of new properties. Profit will increase. We have looked very carefully at the profit margin that we're trying to make. I did say at the outset, we're not trying as a business to achieve 20-30% returns on profit. We want to make sensible returns. We want to manage the company in a sound fiscal way. But it is about delivering about as much as making money. That said, though, to allay some fears, hopefully, there is money that we project that will be made by the company that will make sure we're financially sustainable, that we can reinvest back in as well. So this is over. These profits here are over and above any other monies that we then repay back into the council. And on that point, we will have repaid around £12 million in terms of loans this year. That is against the backdrop of having some challenges earlier on in the year. Committee will be aware of a local partnerships review that was undertaken into the business's finances. I'd like to think that we are in a far better place now. We've had some challenging discussions regarding cash flow within the business. We've now got that under control, and we've got structures and governance in place now that would prevent any of the issues that we've had. I think of all of the recommendations that came out of that local partnerships review, all bar one, which is the appointment of a new FD, who's due to start on the 7th of April, all of those have now been completed. So we've learnt the lessons and we are moving on now. And the last point, Chair, that I want to make, just to give some comfort, we have had some re-evaluations of the business's assets done. They're in their draft phase at the moment, but I fully expect that those will go up from last year's numbers, between about £10 and £20 million increase. That will further widen the gap between the debt that we have in place with the county and the value of the business itself. And I include some of the WIP that we've got there as well. So I think hopefully that will give some reassurance that that gap between the debt that we hold and the value, if that should ever come to be an issue, that gap is there. Hopefully that will give some comfort to the committee. And Chair, you'll be pleased to hear that's it from us. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, thank you very much. Just to let you know that I did discover this morning that there is a genuine evidence of an arm's length relationship, and that Stephen's past doesn't work in this building. So, there's definitely a separation there of powers. I think Paul first.
It's just a clarification. What is EBITDA in the last transparency? Earnings. Acronyms always confuse me unless I'm not a finance guy, so
Yes, last slide.
Forgive me, Chair, that comes with us being a commercial outfit. So earnings before interest. Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortisation.
So
profit.
It be,
It's a long acronym for profit.
Yeah, gross profit.
Okay, so it should be larger. The bigger, the better.
The bigger the number there, the better.
Okay,
yes.
right.
Yes.
I get it. Head count is the employee number of
correct,
people
yes.
employed in that one. Thank you. Just a clarification. Thanks.
Alex?
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I do have a question, especially on the sustainability you referred to. But can I first of all, not just as the elected member, but as a resident, thank you for the work you've been doing at NEP1. That has transformed that area. I've watched it a heap one day, flat the next day, bigger mound the next day, etc., etc. As a former harbour commissioner, I never saw any activity in that ash barge dock. I look forward to what's going to happen with JDR. It's unbelievable. I mean, that's the deepest part of the river. I don't think people realise that. And the work that's been involved there is incredible. But more importantly, Chair, you'll know you get complaints of residents, mud coming on the road, etc., etc. Whenever I've contacted Advance, of getting a reply within an hour and action immediately. Now that is tremendous. So I think fair's fair, credit where credit's due. And I don't think you'll have gotten any feedback really from that area, and that's why I raise it. It really is transformational, and I encourage anybody to go down there and have a look and see how easy it is to spend 30 million quid. Sustainability. I was going to be honest with you and have a pot, for want of a better word, at Portland Burn. But when I heard William say you hope to do it for the whole of the northeast of England, I realised that everything won't just be aimed at this site that British coal neglected and walked away from. And what gets me, Chairman, is quite simple. I believe, you know, this is an excellent concept, and I agree exactly with my colleague here. I think it warrants a conference almost, Chair, by the time you get it together, because people don't understand what biodiversity is and net gain. And ask, my apologies, but any members of strategic panel will find it's coming up with great regularity, especially in the Camas area where all the development is. And then I see the money shifting elsewhere. And I think, hang on, we've got a Triple SI, we've got Reshaw, we've got the River Wansbeck, we've got country parks. Why do we have to find somewhere that hasn't even been registered yet to spend money on? So I think we need this conference, Chair, to ask these questions. Somebody somewhere is making these decisions. And I find it intriguing how we are going to convince somebody in Stockton how to spend money at Portland Burn. I look forward to that one. But I think it's brave, it's adventurous. I do wish you every success, because we can't just do it willy-nilly, Chair. It has to be done in a correct manner, and it's something, at the end of the day, it's going to make everybody's life a little bit better. But I think Joe Public will need to know why monies are being directed at certain areas when perhaps where they live themselves. We have some wonderful country park in Bedlington, and some money's being spent in part of it, some money's not being spent in other parts, and they'd be wondering why that's so. So sorry for the little rant, as Lynn would say.
Thank you for an informative statement. I did sense a little bit of a question at the end there, was about how sites are sort of found for this new sustainability business. What's the process in identifying sites?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I can address the councillors, I'm not say concerned, but that issue is anything that it essentially is already established, or for example, just the easier example we can give is at the Portland Burn site, about 150 of the acres are already under the obligation of a Section 106 agreement for restoration. So anything that is already in nature and obligated can't be used. You have to start and do a baseline, and so therefore it essentially is brand new development to enhance nature rather than take what's already there and bank it. You can't take credit for what somebody else has done, so it has to be a new site. And similarly, the Portland Burn, the sliver of the land to the east of the Longhurst Lane is already under a planning obligation through till 2030. In 2031, we'll be back to enhance that as the habitat bank. So it's that aspect of you can't piggyback on what's already there. Or it's easier to start from a large blank canvas, such as the Portland Burn site. Is
Thanks,
okay?
Chair. Very simple explanation, but first time I've heard it, I'll remember it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caroline?
Thanks, Chair. So, first off, thank you for bringing this report. There's lots of positives in here, but obviously this is a scrutiny committee and it is me. So I'm going to pick up some of the other points around the decaying and obsolete assets. We've obviously had some discussions about some of the stock within my ward. How can I get guarantees for the residents that things aren't going to sit empty for long periods of time, are going to be maintained? And actually some people who have been residents for a very long time, if it was a private property, my landlord would come round and almost inspect the property on a regular basis to make sure that things are to par. Do Advance do that to make sure that the systems are up to standard? Because from my view, if things like that and then maintenance checks aren't done and you've lived in a property for 10 years, then I vacate the property and it leaves that property empty for a long time because things haven't been kept up to standard, let's say. How can I get guarantees for them residents that, whether it be commercial or residential, that they're up to where they should be, because whether it be of a disposal of an asset where we then don't get the correct value for it, or because it's going to need 12 months worth of work, so it's not going to be back for the waiting list. So how can, as I say, address that, and what are them safeguards and KPIs around that? And the other thing with regards to the biodiversity, can I have some guarantees that we're not going to sell off the family silver on the cheap from other areas who may see Northumberland as a cheaper way to hit their BNG net gain, because I'm guessing we're not turning around and saying that it has to be within an X amount of space, and what's stopping somebody land banking from Northumberland on the cheap, and then somewhere down the line we actually haven't got enough for projects within Northumberland. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've got 2 different points there. If you can.
If I could split the first one, Chair, into 2 separate points as well. So I think there's a residential and the commercial aspects of the point that the council is making. First of all, in terms of our residential properties, yes, there are systems in place where we do carry out regular landlord checks. I think what I would say is there's probably some room for improvement in some of the checks that we do. So it is an area that we're looking at changing the way that we go about maintaining and checking properties. So I've just been speaking with our maintenance team this morning. We've got some new starters today, actually 3 new people starting within that area of the business. So that's an area where we know we need to invest more in terms of resource. With respect to one of our particular areas of landhold or home holding, the Hurst, there was an active decision made there, Chair, for void properties to be held, and that was a deliberate strategy that was discussed and agreed with County. That was preceding the implementation of the Hurst Master Plan. So I think there's still quite a lot of work being done on that front, but what we didn't want to do in advance of some major changes within the Hurst was suddenly let properties out there and find it difficult to get in there and get work done. I do think we do need to review that position now. We're holding a number of voids there. So that's from a commercial point of view, that's not the greatest thing for us to be doing, but we thought it was the right thing to do in terms of progressing the Hurst Master Plan. There is more discussion to be had there, and I think we are now in a position where if we're not going to make progress in some areas, we probably do need to bring some of those properties back into use. And I think just because there are families waiting for properties, we can make advantages, we can make some gains there. And I have spoken with the council in respect of a number of problem properties on that estate where we've agreed to intervene and undertake some improvements. But it was part of a deliberate strategy. I think we now need to have a look at that. On the commercial side, one of the things that we have done this year, Chair, is we have looked at disposing of a number of our commercial properties, and these are some of our, I call them poorer performing assets. They have been called various other things, so these are parts of our estate that required significant investment that we did not feel was right commercially, and we were not in the right best place position to actually invest in those properties, so we've moved those on. We've sold them, we sold about £10 million worth of assets. This is not selling off the family silver. These are selling off assets that we didn't think were core. They are now being reviewed by purchasers, and there will be investment in those by parties other than ourselves, and I think that was the right decision for us to be making. We'll continue to do a little bit more of that, but we don't think there are significant disposals to be made. But I wouldn't rule that out in the future. As a commercial business, we want to make sure we've got the right quality of assets. That will allow us to invest in some of the more important assets that we will hold and we do think will make money for us and provide workshop opportunities, small business opportunities for small businesses, etc. We'd like to widen our geographical reach on that side as well. So a combination of the refinancing and being in a better commercial position will allow us to do more of that. There is clear governance around the disposals, so we have to take any disposals through our board. Jan, a shareholder representative, is party to some of those discussions as well and sees what's happening there. So there is a clear governance trail in terms of what we actually dispose of. That has been a success story, I think, for us this year, and we've got rid of a lot of those lower yielding assets. In terms of the biodiversity net gain, I'll pass across to William, but we're not selling that off on the cheap. We see this as a real opportunity for us. and we will drive a hard bargain there. What I would say, before William says it as well, we are reserving, or Northumberland County Council projects get first call on that asset. So that's been a clear decision that we've made. So the projects that the county's bringing forward where there is a requirement for biodiversity net gain will automatically be able to use our facility. We would like to, sorry, I'm stealing all your thunder as I do. I'll shut up now, Chair, and let William speak if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. If I can address a few of those points about the one that Stephen was particularly making there about us exhausting our units by selling them to the market and the county being short. Part of the whole business plan development was not quite hand in hand, but we took significant consideration of what the planners and the county ecologists knew were coming forward in terms of the significant project. So that is in our business plan, and if you, I don't know what's been shared commercially or not commercially with you, but that's allocated. We've identified them. We've, as I said earlier on, we've allocated about half of what we've already got, or identified half of the available units. The vast majority of them are already for county projects or a couple of hours, and the big significant one at NEP 3. There is a market already established around the country for the value of these units. They are in effect a share, because when you commit to them, you are obligated to maintain that for 30 years, which again I think is our attraction of, if you're about to, the basic unit is £25,000 for one unit. We've got 690, that's about £17 million of potential, and that's just in our one asset. We've got to maintain that for 30 years. If you were a developer and you're about to put several £1 million into somebody's pocket, you'd want to know that they're robust and sustainable. And I think that's one of the real advantages of our being owned as arm's length by a county council. We are going to be here in 30 years. So I think that will enable us to have that strength and credibility, which is why we don't want to sell them cheap. We are commercial. There is a market. And one of the other aspects in the business plan is after year one, and we learn, we bed in, we don't run before we walk. It's allocated in the plan that we acquire 20 hectares per annum, so that once we've exhausted Potland Burn, which we anticipate in between 3 and 5 years, depending where the market is, we're growing. And so therefore that's why we've got that ambition that we believe is realistic to be the leading bank in the north of England, not northeast, north of England, because we're going to reinvest that. So the early costs are the establishment of, engaging with contractors to establish the new units, some of which can be done in-house actually. Part of our maintenance team, we're looking at that for efficiencies. We're taking on our own internal staff as part of the growth. So the key protection is the market, that we are not going to undersell. As with any any market, if you are going to suddenly sell an awful lot of them, there may be some discount, but that's a commercial decision. But we've got to maintain that for 30 years. But the comfort or the assurance, hopefully, is that we've liaised with the county's planners. We are alert to future developments, and I think we're almost will be the first call, and especially that our presentation would be very welcome from our point of view to get in front of everybody else that spread the word for us. So we've got minimum numbers. We think the market will go higher. Some people are selling around there, and the market prices are about what we anticipated. So we feel confident about that.
And just with regards to that guarantee that, say for example, QTS can't buy all of our credits at today's value, because I'm assuming, like most things, the cost of a credit will go up in time. So what's stopping them buying them at 2025's value, for example, and holding on to it for a project that they have absolutely no intention of doing till 2030, 2035, which, if they'd bought it then, obviously would bring more money into the local area?
That's a really good question. I think the way that the scheme works would counter that. When you buy a unit, it has to be allocated against almost physical geocached plot of the land, because across Potland Burn, it's not one blanket, divide the acres in the number of units. Each bit has its base value. Some has already got woodland on it, some has got poor grass, some has got watercourse. We enhance the relevant different habitat units. So you can't just buy 100 units and wait, it has to be allocated to the piece of land that then gets registered with DEFRA or Natural England and your local planning authority. So we have a Section 106 agreement locking Potland Burn with Northumberland County Council, and when anybody was to buy, including out of the area, and I'll briefly tell you why you might want to buy from out the area, you are allocating that identified field number, land number, so you can't just bank them. Now, the price may go up, the price may go down. It is a market, so that could fluctuate. But in terms of them being able to bank them, they would probably want to do what we did, is create a habitat bank. That's what we can sell. We anticipate selling them all in the next 3 to 5 years, which is why we think there's a real future, why we want to invest in more land. Land you wouldn't be building on, land that's not for arable food production, undevelopable land that can actually be really beneficially used for renaturing. So I think that will be why I think the mechanism control would stop you from speculating. And why you would buy outside the area is if a Northumberland development needs 1 unit, you buy 1 unit. If a development in Newcastle needed a unit and they didn't have like for like, they'd have to buy 1.5 units and a neighbouring authority. If you're beyond one neighbouring authority, so say Stockton, and you couldn't buy your units locally, which is obviously the priority, do it on site first. If you can't, then locally and equivalents, you have to buy 2. So that's why you would do it. So it'll not be done on the cheap. We were hoping we'd sell them all to London at 5 times the price, but they would have to buy 2 units at our price. So the market will be the market, but the business plan has been devised with our future customer in mind, the supply and demand, and Northumberland is key, as well as advances developments as well, is a key model for our future supply.
Councillor Oliver?
Thank you. Can I just ask a couple of questions of sort of rural slant? Enterprise sort of hubs. You've got sort of managed workspace buildings like the Blythe workspace and so on. Are there any plans to do anything in more rural areas? I know that businesses in the Tyne Valley, small kind of office-y based businesses that maybe tech or design or whatever, often find it really difficult to find premises to operate from. So are there any plans to do anything like that in the Tyne Valley? And then another question about social housing in rural areas. I think it's probably true that most social housing in rural areas gets developed as a Section 106 requirement on a larger development. I'm just sort of concerned in some places where land values are higher that social housing is effectively no longer viable because there's a social market rent that's capped. And if the land value is too high, how are we ever going to sort of develop more social housing in areas where it's sort of fast disappearing through right to buy?
If I could just take those each in turn, Chair. Yes is the answer to both of the questions. That's a short answer. The slightly longer answer on the commercial side is yes, we're certainly targeting, and we've got schemes in the very early stages. Westward, we're also looking at moving northward as well, right up to Berwick. And I think we touched on in our business plan, one of our key aims is to widen our geographical reach. I think we need to be doing more westward, so we've got some, we'd like to look at places like Haydenbridge, Hexham, Haltwhistle, where we think there are some opportunities. We're starting to get some feet on the ground in those areas with a view to understanding what the requirements are. That extends further up north into Amble, Wooler and beyond up to Berwick as well, and further northwestward. So with respect to the affordable housing, that again is an area of focus for us. One of the straplines we have is we like to see ourselves as a business that can fill market gaps where other commercial organisations wouldn't go. So I've mentioned a few times our ability to take a slightly lower margin, which would help us deliver affordable housing in other areas where developers wouldn't go, where it doesn't make commercial sense. So with a balanced portfolio through some house building that does make good commercial returns, allowing us to reinvest that in, we've got a number of schemes at the moment. So I'm talking as an example, Hadston, we're just starting a new development scheme in Hadston. that many others wouldn't touch because of the nature of the returns that are available there. That's a scheme we see as more of a regeneration scheme, so that is an investment that we feel we can make, but other companies can't go. And so we do want to replicate that in areas where land values are high. So again, west of Tyne, moving up further north, we've got schemes in mind, and we are speaking with landowners in each of those areas. So we now have a pipeline of future sites where we can hopefully start delivering on such schemes.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for you, Stephen. Did I mishear before that you said there's potentially B&M and Starbucks for Bedlington?
Those are companies that we're talking to, yes, Chair.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Can we get some more information on that?
Certainly, Chair, I'm happy to speak to the member.
Yeah.
I think, as you see, Jan's appeared on the screen. I think she's got a hand up. Would you like to say something, Jan?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just in relation to Councillor Oliver's question about social housing. Just to clarify, Advance are not a social housing provider. And I know sometimes social and affordable housing, you know, those terms are used interchangeably. But Advance operate as a private landlord, not a social landlord. So just wanted to make that point. I think it's actually quite an important point, although you know, the company do sometimes act as a contractor and build homes on behalf of social housing providers, you know, registered social landlords, and potentially the council through its housing revenue account. But the company is not a social housing provider. And just for anybody that is watching, I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Yes, thank you, Jan. It's an important clarification. Those terms are sometimes used interchangeably, and they are very different things. Malcolm.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You finished. Sorry. Yes.
Just my second question was about sort of like looking at your plan on here, and under your opportunities, you've got procurement opportunities, which you've touched on already, but more services from NCC. Can you expand on that, please?
Yes, Chair, if I could. We feel as though there's opportunity for greater collaboration between ourselves and NCC. Now, that might sound like an obvious thing to say, given that we're owned by NCC. But there's greater scope for us to be looking at doing work for each other. So, as an example, we have a maintenance team, which we feel could expand and undertake some work in conjunction with the estates team for the county, and vice versa. There are services that the county has that we could make more use of. My overarching goal is to make sure there's as little leakage outside of what I would call corporate, or NCC PLC, as I would call it, the overall business, both Advance and the county. I want to make sure that as much as is kept within that envelope. I'm less precious about who does what as long as it's being done efficiently, but I'd rather we did work in-house, as I would say, other than employing third-party contractors who are making a margin. So the idea is to keep as much money in that circle as possible. And that's about using each other's service. And it's about talking to each other and making sure we know what each other's capable of.
Yeah, thank you very much. Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, a comment about this sustainability thing. You know, kudos. You never seem to miss a trick to exploit a monopoly, do you? The thing about it is Councillor Ball's point that 106 is set at application and we sit on SPC, you know, we know all that. And I presume you'll be looking at peat bogs next for carbon trading. But that's just a flippant remark, if you like. My questions really are, widen geographical reach. What does that mean? Because not so long ago, I remember the company, which was called something different, buying assets all over the region, which is more playing politics with it. And secondly, when we set up Advance, we specifically said it would only trade in Northumberland. That was one of its rationale when it was set up. So if you can answer that before we go on.
If you can just clarify that point.
If I could take the peat, I can't let the peat bog comment go. We will look at projects, Chair, that are environmentally sustainable and are the right things to do. I know the general point that's being made, but I think we see it as a real opportunity to do the right thing. It's not just about making money, it's about doing the right thing as well. In terms of the widening the geographical reach, perhaps I should have clarified that more. That is within Northumberland that we're looking. Now, we might reserve the right beyond the 5-year plan to look to widen further into the northeast and into the Necker group, but certainly our plan at the moment is predicated on widening geographical reach within Northumberland. I guess you could say a little bit further out from southeast Northumberland, where a lot of activity does take place. I mean, that's where the greatest population is, so that's, I suppose that goes without saying. But up into Berwick, Amble, Wooler, west of Tyne, there is more that can be done there. So that was the point that was made there, Councillor.
No, that's fine. I mean, the original point you said was you're going to base this on financial returns, not doing favours for the councils and things like that. That's, you know, that's something else. But I want to ask you about NEP1 as well. And the risk you mentioned there, has that been signed off?
The reason I'm hesitant,
Have
Chair,
I not asked you anything else about it?
I was listening to William in my ear. There's a document that's just awaiting a very final signature, but certainly the dispute that we had with one particular contractor has been agreed. We've signed the paperwork. We're told that they'll be signing it in the next day or so. So that risk has been eradicated. There are obviously ongoing contractual commitments with JDR. So you can never say never, but we certainly feel as though we've eradicated a large chunk of risk from that project.
Fine. The other question about that then is, we've got a deep water berth there. Have we got business lined up to take it on? Because I could see it made sense if you're going to bring a ship in loaded up with batteries. Have we got somebody else to replace that usage?
So, Chair, the primary use for that key, as planned at the moment, will be for JDR for their cable operation. There is work ongoing with operators to see whether we can make more use of that facility. As a former portsman, I would like to see that made greater use of. I think that the time will tell how significant the use will be. I would like to think that JDR need that most of the time for their operation. That will signify a significant manufacturing facility in Blythe, sorry, in Camas.
Yeah.
I get that right for the record. So there are sales that are being talked of. The company are talking to us about the potential of bringing ships in the not too distant future. I think time will tell how well used that is, but certainly working with Port of Blythe as a harbour authority in general to maximise the opportunity for all traffic, whether it's into that dock there or into any other traffic on that river itself. There's a real opportunity for Northumberland there. It's a real strong asset. Yeah. We want to be part of helping them to achieve the most there.
Fair enough. I think it's a couple of years away from we're seeing cruise ships dock there. But my last question. Not so long ago, we saw the regeneration department chucked across into Advance, and we've just seen them transferred back to NCC. Can you explain the rationale behind all that?
I think this is the economic growth team that we're looking at, Councillor. So this is a fairly specialised team that we're involved in the distribution and identification of grant opportunities. I think really that did sit better within the county. So there was a decision. I think the decision was made in principle before I arrived. It's not one I disagree with. It has allowed the county to get greater focus in terms of delivery of that inward investment. We're working hand in glove, so I think whilst the bodies may have transferred from one organisation to another, you're not losing those opportunities. And the councillor talked before about where we can be. I answered a question before about where we can work together. We're still talking to each other on a daily basis, but it did make sense to transfer that team of 16 people back into the county where there was similar work being done. I think there's greater clarity now in terms of who's doing what, and hopefully proof of the pudding will be in the eating. In the coming years, we'll see greater results as a result of that. But there's still we're still talking to each other, even though they're sitting in a different part of the county.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Oliver wants to come back.
Yeah, just to follow up, I mean, thanks to Jan for the point she made, and I think I was aware of the difference between social housing and affordable housing. The issue in some of these areas really is with social housing, in the sense that it's sort of disappearing, and there's a commercial market failure. Affordable housing doesn't really provide an alternative solution, because if it's technically defined at 80% of local market value, when you've got a local market value in excess of £300,000, then it becomes inexpensive. It becomes too expensive for people and families whose parents and grandparents are having to move out of some of our villages and towns because they can't find anywhere to live that they can afford. So it would be encouraging to think that Advance could work with the social housing providers to build houses for them, to sort of resupply that market.
Yep, Stephen.
So if I could just take the opportunity to briefly, and can I thank Jan for intervening? It's not the first time she's set me correct in the definition between affordable and social, so a slip of the tongue on my behalf. But that partnership working that we touched on before is key in that respect as well. So we will deliver on behalf of partners, and we are seeking to increase the number of partners that we're working with and do more in that space.
Thank you for clarifying. Right. Paul.
More request than question, actually. So first, let me comment. I think this signing of QTS is completed, I think, isn't it? The QTS in Cambo is completely signed off.
Cambo's
Thank you.
A different place, Paul. It's Camas.
Camas. Okay, Camas. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. That's a
one thing you should learn from this committee is that it's called Camas.
Thank you, Malcolm, for correcting me. In fact, my employers approached QTS for some sponsorship. Newcastle University, my employers, and they have been extremely helpful. So I think their commitment to social values second to none, demonstrably second to none. Whatever the role Advanced Northumberland played in bringing QTS to Camos, right? Okay, is really appreciated. And what I want to ask is that, in one of the visions of County Council is to tackle inequality, and I'm chairing the Health and Wellbeing Board, and we are looking into that one. And one of the things we did was to tackle inequalities through housing. Now we moved on through employment. If Advanced Northumberland can also join in that process, you will be most welcome. I think legally, I don't think you can play. I think there is nothing to prevent you from playing any role in that one, because you have contacts with lots of potent employers in the region, so your contributions are very welcome. So if you could contact and then take part, because we are now discussing what we can do to tackle inequalities through employment.
Can I just respond very briefly? So Advanced Northumberland are playing a part in the programme that was set up by the Chief Executive, Helen Patterson. So we are part of that programme tackling inequalities. That was the first thing to say. One thing that I haven't touched on, which was remiss of me actually, is to forward that agenda as well. We also are setting up a corporate social responsibility programme. I think it's been a bit remiss of us in the past that we've perhaps not made more of what we do and can do. But we are, as part of our business plan, setting aside a portion of our profit, a small portion to start with, but we have budgeted for a percentage of our profit being put into a programme, and we're looking at partners to establish that with, where we could put forward money to projects that would help tackle inequalities across Northumberland. So that's in addition to everything else that we're doing. We do want to set up a programme that we'll be making more of in coming months, where we can join in with such projects and put money out for sponsorships, for local clubs, and the like. And I think that's, given the type of business we are, I feel, or we all feel as though we need to be doing more of that. So probably underplay that a little bit. See Alex scribbling down, so we'll make more of that. But that's a new initiative that's probably hidden in the depths of our business plan somewhere, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think.
Lynn?
Thank you. It sounds absolutely marvellous, and I wish you all the very best of luck, because today's been very informative, because we're sitting here last year, well, not in this particular room, but and we thought it was very exciting what your plans were, because it's the first time we had met you. And today, you know, I'm even more convinced that, you know, your strategy and business plan will develop, and hopefully it will, and help everyone in Northumberland. But may I ask if you've got a plan for perhaps, you know, getting apprentices, and will they be local, and will you be using the local college for advancing their knowledge, because obviously we've got a new college coming, as you well know, and would there any courses that would be applicable to them to be, you know, to go into the college to be able to for their knowledge, and also, if you're going ahead and employing people, it would be lovely to see that you're employing local people. If you could answer that as well, please, if you don't mind.
Yep,
thank you very much, Chair.
Yep, thank you. Apprenticeships?
So yes is the answer to apprenticeships. Given my background, that's an area I'm particularly keen on. I am very shortly going to meet the college. There's a photo shoot after this, my next meeting actually, which I think is a fantastic addition to Ashington. So we're proud to be part of that. And we are talking to them about potentially what we can do on the apprenticeship front. We have a small number of people that we're trying to look to put through that route. William, I didn't know whether you wanted to comment.
Sorry, we're particularly looking to target the there's a sustainability apprenticeship or an ecology, because there's going to be a shortage of ecologists because of this new explosion of this need. So we're going to look at part of our plan is taking people on who are qualified and bringing somebody through as a chain. So that's a key one, as well as other parts of the business. But that's a very important part of our sustainability strategy.
And certainly, Councillor, some of the trades that we're looking at bringing on board, that's an obvious route for us as well. In respect of the question on local employees, this is a subjective comment. I've not worked anywhere where there are more local employees, but you have raised a really valid question. We'll make sure, Chair, we get those statistics, because I think that is something that we should be proud of. I'll just better make sure that we've got the numbers to back that assertion up, but it does feel to me as though we have many people who work and live locally, and I think that provides far greater investment in the communities in which they work. But I'll make sure we get back with some statistics on that, Chair.
If you may indulge me, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it'll be lovely. And may I ask as well, Chair, that we don't have just this on an annual basis, because I think, you know, having an update regularly from yourselves not only helps us, you know, with, you know, gaining more knowledge about the company, but also, you know, you don't sell yourselves enough to the wider public to say exactly what you do. And I would like to see, you know, you spread yourselves about more and shout from the rooftops about, you know, what you're doing, to convince members of the public that you're, you know, working for them too. So, Chair, may I ask if we could maybe have on a more regular basis, if that's okay with Advanced Northumberland, for to actually come in and speak to this corporate scrutiny, you know, rather than just annually. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, well, obviously we'd like to come annually, and I think if you've got something special to tell us, like for example, the environment business, that would be worthwhile, or apprenticeships, or any particular. I think we should have an annual overview, but I think if there are specific issues. But anyway, that is for people other than us potentially. So we'll see what happens in the future. Right. Thank you very much, everybody. I've got no more questions on that. So thank you, Stephen and his team, for coming along. You are able to leave if you like, and we'll go on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, so moving on, we've now got item number 5, which is the report on financial performance. We've got Jan here on the big screen. So, Jan, if you'd just like to talk us through this one. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is the position at the end of December, so Q3 report. At that point, we were forecasting an overspend of just under £3 million, which is an improvement on the position at the end of September, when the forecast overspend was around £6 million. We have clearly we're at today is the last day of the financial year, so we continue to monitor the position on a monthly basis, and as things stand, I am optimistic that we will be reporting a balanced outturn when we do the final outturn report in June. One of the significant things which has happened which has contributed to the improved position is that we have seen a slight fall in the interest rate that we're paying on our debt, and also we've taken on less external debt than we were budgeting for due to slippage in the capital programme. The other thing that I would highlight is that we have seen some easing of the pressures in children's services and adults in January and February. So I think all of that will contribute to an even further improved position when we get to the final outturn. And I think that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jan. So some relatively good news. Things are going in the right direction, and we're hopeful that the next report on the final part of the year will show a balanced budget and no overspend. But it's you will recall in September there was about a £6 million overspend projected. There's now 3 million, and let's hope it's going to get better. Do we have any questions on the report for Jan? No? Oh, Councillor Oliver.
Just a quick question about the BEST programme, Jan. I mean, there's a couple of things it mentioned in there that 3 months ago were slightly delayed. Are you happy with progress overall on the programme?
Yes, so in the report you will see that we are reporting that we're not going to achieve the target. I think it was £1 million savings target for the best use of assets. This is about rationalisation of our corporate property estate. It's just taken a bit longer than we were hoping to get those savings in place. Those targets, or that target, will be carried forward. What we're not yet reporting at December, but I expect to be reported for the final outturn, is that we've done a significant amount of work on debt recovery, and we think that on the back of that work, we can release about £1 million from our provision for bad and doubtful debts, because we've actually, collected a significant amount of outstanding debt over and above, what we would our normal level of activity. So I think that will make up for that £1 million shortfall this year, and going forward, as you know, we're deep into that accelerated delivery phase now, following on from the refresh of the strategic business case. So it is going to be challenging, in terms of delivering, an even larger target for savings in the coming financial year. But I think we're well placed to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Christine, did you have your hand up? Yeah. Yes. Could you put your thing up?
Apologies, Jan. Can you just talk us through the creation of the new earmarked reserve for the leisure, please? The 1.3 million.
Yes. So, so members will be aware that we let a new contract to Places for People to manage our leisure centres at the beginning of this year, and as a consequence, Active Leisure have who were previously providing those services have been wound up. As part of the winding up, their remaining reserves of £1.3 million have come back to the council, and that is the 1.3 million that we're proposing to put in an earmarked reserve, and it will be used going forwards to meet leisure related costs. So, for example, there are some specific costs around car parking at Concordia, their use of the car parking space at Manor Walks. There was no budget to pay for that, so that's one example of how that leisure sort of provision will be used. And there are some other property-related costs that we'll be drawing down against that reserve for.
Yeah, Caroline.
Thank you, Chair. It's just with regards to the recommendation 3.1 and the reprofiling of the capital programme of 36.8 million from 24-25 to 25-26. I just want some guarantees that this money is actually going to be spent and not just moved to another spreadsheet next year, because we see some of the almost robbing Peter to pay Paul for projects to get down the line when the promised projects aren't delivered. So I just want some guarantees that this money is going to be spent on the projects that we're expecting in a timely fashion, because I can't help but wonder how many times things get moved, and I would really like to see the delivery of them capital projects, because we've seen it in Ashington where money's been moved out to support another project in another area where actually I personally feel that some of them projects could have been over the line by now. So I just want some guarantees that 36.8 million will be spent on capital. It will be done like too smart for people, and we don't see we're sitting in the same position if we're looking to return that money's not being moved again, because obviously 36.8 million today will not be worth 36.8 million tomorrow, or at least it won't deliver as much as what it would today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jan, just on that point.
Well, what I would say, Chair, is that there's a whole host of reasons for capital slippage. Some of these are complex infrastructure projects, and delivery is not within our direct control. Others have been delayed due to the difficult construction market, and the need to do significant value engineering to ensure that those projects can be delivered within the available budget envelope. So there's a whole host of different reasons. I personally am not in a position to give any such guarantees. I'm not responsible for the actual delivery of those projects, but you know, I think you know the budget is there for specific projects. And you know, and I think it's for this committee to ask the officers who are responsible for the delivery of those projects to come and give assurances about the deliverability of those projects. Appreciate that this is the last meeting of the committee, but you know, this issue does come up on a regular basis, and so you know, it may well be that that's something which could be built into the future work programme for the new committee after the May elections.
Thank you, Jan. And just on that point, these are the promises of the current administration. Other administrations may be available after the 1st of May, so we'll have to see what they want to do. Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. Jan, I'm not going to ask you about reserves. Most of my questions have been asked and answered to satisfaction. I'm concerned about the capital slippage that we've just talked about. I'm still concerned about the procurement, because I can see one or two of my projects have slipped because of the procurement process. So still question that. I'm forgetting my main question. The disposals under the BEST scheme and whatnot. We were presented with 3 disposals this current year and 3 for next year. Are you saying the 6 of them haven't progressed as well as we thought?
No, what I'm saying is that in this year we plan to vacate 3 buildings.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and we would then not be incurring the running costs for those buildings. So nothing to do with what then happened to those buildings in terms of whether they were sold or whether they were available for alternative use, community asset transfer, whatever. So the plan that underpinned the budget assumption was that those buildings would be closed, we would save the running costs, and the staff that were working there would relocate to other buildings. And what I'm saying is it has taken longer than we expected to fully close those buildings, and therefore we have not made the full saving on the running costs.
Thank you. I know one in Bedlington in question. Are you saying the plan is not to dispose of them? The plan is to mothball them?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the budget was based on just saving the running costs from closing them. We did not make any assumptions in budget terms about what then happened to those buildings. There is a process whereby, as those buildings are vacated and become available for disposal or alternative use, that those options are considered. Right. And we have a strategic property group with representation, from across different services, which looks at those alternative use cases. And if the community come forward, with community asset transfer plans, then that's also part of the same process. Okay, but I think the key point, Malcolm, is that if another service wants to take some of those buildings on, then they have to be able to provide the budget to cover the running costs. Because otherwise we're not saving any money. But we've just incurred a lot of additional cost and disruption. So an example of that might be, we have funding for family hubs. If one of those buildings is suitable for use as a family hub, and Children's Services Directorate have the budget to pay for the cost of running that building as a family hub, then that's something that would be considered.
Fine, thank you.
Do I have any more questions on that? No? So thank you very much. We'll look at that report. Sorry, Lynn.
Sorry, thank you. Perhaps, sorry, Sean, but perhaps we could have on the programme for next year an update of the asset transfers as well. So, disposal of, if you don't mind. And I get yes, we don't know who'll be on it, but it just, so we're going to have that little bit focus. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, I think that will come back as part of the best property process, but yes, we are going to get that back as part of that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Jan's agreeing, yes. Right, okay, thank you. Right, any others on that? No, thank you very much. Then we'll just simply move on to the monitoring report, which is for noting, it's basically what we've done over the last year. I did give the headlines at full council the other day, which, so anything on there? No. Right, urgent business, if any. There is none. So I'd like to thank you all once again for a wonderful 4 years, and I hope to see all of you back after the 1st of May, or those of you that, so good luck with everybody, and thank you very much. Thank you.